Jon Scott, Lindsey Moppert, Vic Carucci Bills win in the opener 34-28, but boy, it was not easy at all. It looked pretty dire there in the first half, even some smattering of boos from the section right on the other side of the camera as it was 17-3. Lindsey, what are your takeaways from a game where it looked bad and ultimately it looked good?
Well, then again, there is Josh Allen, right? So I guess Josh Allen, and I'd say there were two key factors to this game. One, of course, being Josh Allen. When the team needed him to kind of put him on his back, get things rolling, he did so. And then, of course, Greg Rousseau for me as well. A career high in a single game with 3 sacks. I mean, what a performance by him.
Sometimes when you prepare or think about a season and you start putting together storylines, some of those storylines are, okay, nice media creations, but some of them really hit home. This one hit home, us talking about Josh Allen, the guy who not only had to perform at a higher level than ever. I mean, that is what a franchise quarterback is supposed to do game in and game out, perform high level, but be the leader, be the catalyst. It felt like this game against the Cardinals, everything came together in game 1 as perhaps a preview of what is going to be needed game in and game out.
Speaking of hitting at home, I'm going to have to do some dancing through the rest of this from Lindsey's ponytail from smacking me in the face from this win. Jonathan's about to yell at me on the other side of the camera from not getting out of frame here. But Josh Allen, you're absolutely right, Vic. This overrated nonsense talk, which anyone who knows anything knows that was just idiotic, stupid. Let's manufacture television. That's really what it was. Josh Allen isn't overrated. But I do think there was moments, and I'll admit I'm one of them, I think I take for granted the things that this kid can do. Yeah. The throws that he makes that maybe he makes so regularly that are so challenging that you're like, yeah, okay, there it is. But it is incredibly defying logic a lot of times. Allen leaping over players. Yeah, it's fun and it's cool to watch. We've seen it so many times. It's like, ho-hum, here he goes again. But some of the guys in the locker room are like, a guy who's 6'5", 250, like, they should not be able to do that. It's almost like an appreciation out the gate. And to your point, Vic, I think they're going to need it of what exactly this guy's going to have to do.
Yeah, I mean, we're in week 1 and he already has his trademark hurdle jump touchdown already in the books. I think something that you were saying about his teammates speaking on his behalf, we've heard this a lot, but Von Miller kind of saying, yeah, it's Josh Allen, right? Anytime that you have Josh Allen on your team making those kinds of plays, you have a chance to win.
Yeah, and the other thing that Von Miller mentioned is it gets us going. It gets us going. That's okay. It's one of the hazards of the job. It gets us going. He means, of course, the not just the offense, but I mean the entire team, the defense. The other thing that you look at, and let's talk about that not even call it a touchdown run, the touchdown fly through the air. He goes airborne. And that's also a cringeworthy moment because that is usually when some horrific injuries can occur. And obviously he lands on his left hand, so that leads to some questions and then seeing the hand being all taped up on the sidelines by Nate Breschke, the athletic trainer for the Bills. And he finishes the game. You expect him to do that, but you think about those moments. And part of me says, again, it's great that he can do that. The other part of me says, is he going to feel the need or does he feel it inside? Because we've seen this before from the younger Josh. We call it hero ball, right? This idea that he's got to do everything. Well, again, he did it well against the Cardinals. It was why they won the game. But the question becomes, is that sustainable? Do others, and the answer we know is yes, others have to come up and present more as a supporting cast.
And obviously people are going to be watching this throughout. I'm going to look at my watch. It's just like 7:40 after the game here. So if news happens to come out regarding a Josh Allen injury of any sort, understand why we're going to kind of cut the conversation off right there and not delve in any further. But as things come out over the week, we will get into it. You touched on the offense. Questions we had at wide receiver, I think, was the next big talking point here. What sort of answers did you get from today's game?
Well, 9 different targets out there today, which pretty much shows that this team is committed to Joe Brady's mantra of saying everybody eats, right? And Khalil Shakir kind of touching on it a little bit. We had a Shakir touchdown. We saw Mac Hollins. We saw a lot of big plays in the run game today. So I think this game really did speak to that. And I think moving forward, again, it's pretty unpredictable to kind of see who. I don't even necessarily know if all the time they know who is really going to get the most touches in each game.
But we might know this. Joe Brady, in his first official game as the full-time offensive coordinator, put his stamp on this offense right away. It was power-driven. They ran more than they threw, and that didn't surprise me. James Cook, of course, the central part of the running game, and he performed well. He was also involved as a receiver. And then you mentioned the 9 different targets, or the 9 different receivers catching the ball. Nobody was spectacular in that group, and I didn't see great separation or anything like that, but you did see the idea that, okay, we got to utilize all these guys. The expectation that Dalton Kincaid is going to be the dynamic force. Now, very limited number of targets. I think only had the 1 catch for 11 yards. I think 2 targets. So, again, that can change as the year goes on, but it's telling me that the expectation that this team, we know, doesn't have Mr. Dynamic, Mr. Stephon Diggs, or even a Gabe Davis at this point. We'll see how it evolves, but I think the early look is that it's an offense that's going to rely on balance, power, and, oh yeah, number 17.
Absolutely. Sean McDermott's saying in terms of Dalton Kincaid, they were looking to get him the ball. Just I think Arizona was really putting a focal point on their defensive side of things to take him away. Keon Coleman ultimately leading the team in targets, even though he didn't have a catch until about 30 seconds left in the first half. Let's flip over to the defensive side of things, because in my opinion, the biggest question going into maybe the entire season for the entire team was the Bills' pass rush. I didn't have a lot of faith in it. I got to be completely honest. And they were showing that I had good reason in the first half. They turned it around, and you mentioned Greg Rousseau off the top. My goodness, the difference that he can make on this defense, should he not 3 sacks every week, but if he can be that disruptive, we got to know what that guy's doing at all times for us. The Bills' defense has completely changed.
No, exactly. I think, as you mentioned, I think right now Greg Rousseau is the Bills' biggest X factor on the defense. They needed someone to come out there and say, I'm going to make plays right now, and Greg Rousseau did that. He made sure of it. Again, 3 sacks on the day. Last year, to put that into perspective, he had 5 total altogether in his season. So just to see the progression, and Sean McDermott touching on it after the fact, saying that Greg Rousseau has not only, his performance kind of, it comes after him showing that kind of progress in practice and in camp, and he said it's a mental and a mindset kind of thing to then put that into a game.
I thought it was very interesting the way Sean McDermott addressed Greg Rousseau and made a point of saying how important it was that it carried over from training camp and from, he said, especially the last couple of weeks of practices. You know, that's telling me even he's sitting back saying, okay, what are we going to see from this guy? Because this is their hope, their best answer for a pass rush. We thought it would be Von Miller. It's really not, I don't think it's going to be that guy, at least on a consistent basis. Yes, he got his first official credit of a sack in this game, but it was all about Greg Rousseau, and the Bills know this, and Sean McDermott knows this. If they're going to have any semblance of a pass rush, it's going to start for him. And keep in mind, this is still a defense that's got big questions at safety. With obviously the turnover there. No Matt Milano, possibly for the whole season, or at least for a good chunk of it. So you're going to need some individuals really stepping up and making a difference, again, beyond what Josh Allen can do offensively to help maybe take some of that pressure off defense.
One of the individuals on the defense who you know what you're getting, he's going to be a sensational player, is Taron Johnson. He leaves the game super early with the forearm injury. No official word from Sean McDermott on the extent, but he did not return. That really jumbled things up on the Bills' defense, and two UB guys, are the ones who stepped up. Cam Lewis is the ultimate Swiss Army knife on this team. He's the backup nickel. He's the backup safety. He can go outside on the boundary, and he was thrust into being kind of that safety, nickel, dime package type of guy. And Jamarcus Ingram, who's a cornerback, was thrust onto the field as well, as they kind of had to move the pieces around. Vic, I just want to go to you because I know you were looking at this in particular. The moving pieces that not only those two individuals, their performance, but Bobby Babbage, the way he was able to pivot away from Taron Johnson.
Yeah, all of that comes together, John. It's such a great point. Cam Lewis, what a true professional he is. He may not be the most physically talented player on the field or on the team at all, but he's one of those steady guys that coaches love because of his knowledge, his preparation, his work ethic, all of those things. I heard that about him at UB. It carries over to the NFL. Bobby Babich, first game, a lot of pressure as a first-time defensive coordinator. Carries a lot of emotion with him, calling those defensive signals and dealing with a team. You don't have much knowledge. You don't know a whole lot. Yeah, Kyler Murray's been in the league, and they have a couple of players that were familiar, but you look at Marvin Harrison Jr. in his first outing as a pro. They did an excellent job of not letting him kill them, but they did have their problems against the run, and that's something that's going to have to be worked on. There was a tempo controlling that the Cardinals had going. I know that was a thing that Bobby Babich addressed heavily with the team at halftime. They did make some changes there, but by and large, if there's something to look at from this game on a list of things, it's going to be not letting the opponent have that much control on the ground.
And Cam Lewis, I think we've heard so many times just how important his role is on this team. I think today was a perfect example of that. Sean McDermott also, saying that he gives him credit for being prepared when the opportunity came. Same thing goes for Jamarcus Ingram, making that game-sealing play in the end zone. So, I think it just goes to show you that when these guys, when their numbers are called, they have to be ready.
And Jamarcus Ingram, in the midst of what I'm going to call baloney call early, that kind of set up some points there. He was called for a personal foul as Kyler Murray was going to the ground. Good for him to, one, move on from that and still be in the game to allow himself to make that impactful play. But it does also go to a greater good. That one was kind of wishy-washy. I'm going to say it was baloney. But the pre-snap penalties, the discipline, Sean McDermott, we know, it drives him absolutely nuts. And it was killing them, Lindsey, when they dug themselves in that big hole early.
I think there was a point, John, I think it was maybe the second quarter there in the first half, that there were 3 pre-snap penalties in 4 plays. So if that doesn't just go to show you, I think that in general is disappointing, and obviously something that Sean McDermott has said many, many times that should not happen. It's disappointing. Josh Allen also saying similar things after the game.
Look, the crowd today rightfully salty about the officiating, beginning with what John mentioned as far as a phantom roughing call. I don't know where that came from. It was awful. There were other questionable calls that this crew made, but the pre-snap penalties and other penalties by the O-line, and Spencer Brown just gets that new contract. He's getting called. Deion Dawkins is getting called. Osiris Torrance picking up multiple penalties. So there's a discipline issue that still exists with this group. We saw it in the preseason as well. It was troubling then. That is something that has to be cleaned up.
We're definitely back in NFL season because Thursday night, Friday night, this game, it's all about the refs, what they are or are not doing here. We'll wrap it up with this. Quick turnaround for the Bills, Lindsey, as they're headed to South Florida to face the Miami Dolphins, who also struggled mightily and barely skated away with the W in the opener here. How challenging is it, knowing what you saw here on the field, for the Bills to, in just short order, face a very critical matchup against the Miami Dolphins?
Again, I don't want to go any further into this. Obviously, with Josh Allen, as we said, he was one of the 2 big difference makers, as he tends to be. With his status, that's TBD, and I won't go any further with that. But I think the biggest thing for me is just seeing how slow this game started on, I'd say more so on the defensive side of the ball. I think they just need to get to that second half performance much faster on Thursday.
Yeah, the health issue is always going to be a concern, even if you don't know an obvious injury. Though these things do tend to creep up on the report. And remember, with a short week, no time to heal, really no time to practice. It's going to be mostly walkthrough type stuff. This is going to be very tough. They got to travel to South Florida. You got a Miami team that, yes, survived and won against I think a good Jacksonville team. Did that at home. A lot of issues that I'm sure are boiling over from the Tyreek Hill incident before their game against Jacksonville, where he was pulled over and for a speeding violation or something, traffic violation, he winds up face down on the ground in handcuffs. And I think that does that tangibly work into something in terms of the Dolphins or his performance going forward? I don't know. Had a big play against Jacksonville. Got to really go back and look at that to see what his performance was all about. But here's the bottom line. Tua Tagovailoa, big contract. Hill, Waddle, the receiver, the other receiver, getting those big contracts. There's a lot of expectation in South Florida, and it's the Bills coming to town. It's a primetime game. It's going to be interesting.
It's a serious pivot point, I think, for the Bills early out the gate. A lot of people expected, hey, you're going to beat the Arizona Cardinals, and now this starts a stretch that is really going to shape at least the first portion of where this Bills season tends to go. The one good thing for me about a short week, if you're going to have it, you're going to have it early. Have it against a team you play regularly that, honestly, from a game plan standpoint, these two teams know each other so well. I don't think you're going to have to burn the midnight oil to scheme things up.
I think, too, Sean McDermott had said that this was something that, this is no surprise. They knew this was on the schedule. They had done a couple things, in the preseason and kind of preparing for this short turnaround. So, again, it's not a surprise. Hopefully this is something that they are prepared for. And it's really just the rest factor.
It's not quite midnight, but I am smelling some oil burning from their offices over there because they were diving right into meetings right after Sean.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And hopefully the wind, I know the temperature is going to rise down in South Florida, but maybe the wind will temper a little bit so Jonathan's not holding onto the camera for dear life. For Vic Carucci, Lindsey Moppert, I'm Jon Scott for Channel 2 Sports.